Hello, my name is Blank. I'm a blank and I've done some blank in the past and I hope for blank in the future, and I like to blank stuff with my party because I'm a blank. Blank. Hello and welcome to today's episode. My name is Guy and you are watching How to Be a Great Player. I apologise in advance. I have been suffering from terrible man flu these last few weeks, and if I make some strange noises, you know where they come from. Now, we are talking about blank. We're talking about what do you do? What solutions do you have for a retro backstory? Now, let's say you've created a character, you've statted them out, you've done everything that you could possibly want to do on the character, and then it comes to that all-important backstory, and you've got a nitpicky little GM going, I really need your backstory because I've got to build a plot around your character, and you're going, I don't know my character's backstory. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. They grew up on a farm, they picked up a sword, they went adventuring. There we are, that's my backstory. Well, perhaps that's how it started. Perhaps the idea was more for the build that you were going for than necessarily the character's background. And there are many ways in which one could have tried to come up with a character backstory beforehand. You can watch the rest of the videos on this channel if you are uncertain as to what those are. But if you have already got a character, or if you have a character whose backstory is grew up on a farm, rode a cow, attended religious services once a week, got married, had 3 kids, left to go adventuring. That's a bit of a backstory, but it's not much of a backstory, and it's certainly got some spaces that one can improve upon. And so that is exactly what we're going to be looking at today. Is we're going to look at how to retro backstory your character without it feeling like, I had to get that right, without it feeling like you've retro backstoried your character. How are we going to do that? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to look for moments, not books. Now, we'll unpack that one just a little bit. We're going to connect the dots as to, everyone's played that game, and then it's not for convenience. It's for your benefit, and it's to make your character feel more real and give you something to actually latch on to. So how are we going to do that? Now, we are going to do that by looking at moments. When you have a character moment, when you have an opportunity to role-play your character, there is absolutely nothing wrong with improvisation. Now, when it comes to improv, when it comes to that free-form thinking where one has to just create a history on the backstory, on the back foot, as it were, perhaps your character is sitting around the campfire and all the other characters are doing the same, and the GM has been quiet, there's no encounters, no one's heard any footfalls of approaching Klingons or anything like that. It's all just very nice and very pleasant and lovely. And the bard happens to turn to your character and say, so, why did you leave your family? In a moment of blind panic, you look down at your character sheet, realise that you wrote that they had a wife and 3 kids and left to go adventuring. You now need to solve that problem. You now need to answer that. So answer it by giving a moment. Just give a moment, and just have that moment. They all, don't go for the obvious, died, because that's a tragic backstory. Not all heroes have to have tragic backstories. So try and avoid the death one. They all joined the circus, and I couldn't. Aha! I have no idea where that came from. I was just thinking of what 1 woman and 3 children might do. They all started a mining consortium. They all went off to become chimney sweeps. They all started a bakery. They all were abducted. They all... You can come up with something on the fly. So just add a moment. So we're not talking a massive story here. We're not talking a book. We're talking a single moment, a single sentence. So add that sentence. then you expand on that moment. So that sentence, they all joined the circus and I couldn't. It was many years ago, and the kids were good acrobats, and the wife was their trainer. I, unfortunately, have got 2 left feet, and so couldn't go with them. But I didn't want to hold them back, and so they left me on the farm. And the farm did well, but I got bored, and they were touring the world, so there's no point in me hanging around, so I thought I'd take a holiday. Now I'm adventuring. Okay, it's not the greatest of backstories, but it's starting to become more interesting as a backstory, isn't it? Now what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of emotionally understand how that feels for the character. I was depressed to see them go, but on reflection, I get letters from them every now and again, and they're all in good health and enjoying life, and I believe that Margaret now can swing on her own, and Joff has managed to make the leap, which apparently is a good thing. So we plan to see each other over Nickelmas, whenever that might be. So now we've got an emotional understanding. We've got a father who's separated from his family. They're all trying to make money to pay for the farm. The family's having fun. They send letters to one another. That means now suddenly your character has a letter to send. What an interesting little backstory that's starting to develop out of just a single moment. And then you incorporate it moving forward. That's where that letter comes in. Whilst we're beheading the beholder, does anyone know how to write? I can't write because I've just added a moment to my character sheet, and I want to send a letter to my wife and kids because of that one moment that I added to my character sheet not long ago. I now have this entire story. The GM now has a family who are at a circus, who are writing letters backwards and forwards. It's absolutely wonderful. Look at all of that from a single moment of terror in terms of saying that your character's family are at the circus. All of that, I think that's absolutely amazing. So all you do is you think of a moment, you expand a little bit on that moment, you add an emotional response to that moment of your character, and then you incorporate it moving forward. I guarantee you that's created an amazing little moment of your character's backstory that happened after the fact. Quite remarkable. Now you connect the dots. So let's say you've now had a few of these moments. You've got a family who are circus bound. You owned a dog once, but he ran away, and you never are sure what happened to him. And you happen to have a brother who is currently in prison because of a feud between him and somebody else. Now you want to link these moments to previous moments. Perhaps the brother was having an affair with your wife, and so when it was decided that the wife and the kids would leave, it's actually because the brother and wife had been caught by your character, and your character had decided enough was enough. Maybe that's the true story, but your character, the father, still keeps in touch with the kids because, well, that's what fathers do sometimes. So that's a link. That's linking the two together, and now two separate stories, which don't seem to have anything in common with each other, start to fill out as a complete backstory, as a complete history. Because most of the time, your history will be linked from one incident to the next incident to the next incident. This caused that, and then that happened, and that happened, and so on and so on. Why the brother's in prison at the moment? Well, that's a whole different moment to explore and unpack. Something that's always useful is to include 3 details. My brother and my wife were having an affair. So brother and wife having an affair. The missing dog is actually not missing. The dog, well, the wife killed the dog by mistake. She was trying to hide the brother's weaponry and threw it out the window and impaled the dog. And so she buried the dog in the garden, which is why the tomatoes that we ate that year were so wonderfully large and ripe. I discovered this later on, and that's actually why I threw her out, because I loved that dog. That's a very comedic approach to take to it. But linking them together, trying to figure out how do these moments work. Some of them are not necessarily going to be linked together. Why your grandparents died or were the saviors of the world and then retired, and you grew up with them, and then they sent you to a monastery. At the monastery you met a cat. The cat has no link necessarily to the grandparents. But by linking things together, by adding in these details, it allows your brain, rather than to try and have to create stuff out of nothing, to look at the two different objects to go, okay, brother to dog. How do I link the brother to the dog? Maybe the brother gave me the dog. Maybe the dog was a twin that the brother had had as well. Perhaps the dog was owned by the brother, but the dog preferred you, so the dog stayed when the brother used to leave. But the brother was around so often because he was busy with the wife that, well, it became your dog. Maybe that's something that you can look at. So it removes the burden of having to come up with a brand new narrative by just trying to build some simple little bridges, some simple little links, which can be often very fun and can lead to some very interesting stories. So then when we look at the last step to make sure that your backstory is not just this, oh, we need somebody who has rope use. Well, in my backstory that I'm just busy adding in now, I can use rope because my family was in a circus and I used to tie the ropes. That, to me, is not good backstorying. That, to me, is someone who's cheating to try and win at a game that you can't win at. So I would rather say, do not close gaps in your character sheets. Oh, my character doesn't know how to pilot. Well, actually, he was a pilot, so he should have piloting skill. No, that's not what retro backstory creating is all about. It's about creating a backstory, not about creating a character that can do something now. That's not what we're looking for. So look at your character sheet, look at the skills that your character has, and then try to account for them in your backstory. I've got a pretty good sniper skill, so I probably grew up with some kind of hunting background or something along those lines. Now there's a moment that I can add in, and I can link the hunting story to this and that. So it should add interest. It should add interest. It should develop. It should develop and support. It should develop and support your character. It shouldn't be just making your character better mathematically or skill-wise or proficiency-wise or whatever those attributes are that you're using for your particular role-playing. It should make your character more interesting. It should make the fellow players sitting around the table more interesting. And I know that there are going to be people saying, oh, but I don't care about that kind of stuff. I don't care about that kind of stuff. I just want to play the game. Well, role-playing, part of that is creating the role, and part of the role is what comes with you. Now, you might not want to explore that, but at least when others who are playing the game with you do decide to do that, you have some answers for them that will make them much more interested in your character. And if you ask them their characters' backstories, they should have just as interesting a story as yours. There's no reason why the game master needs to be the only one who has to come up with stories and whose adventures and things you follow. What if your party decides, well, dad nabbit, let's go find your dog. Your dog is important because your brother deserves to be in prison, and quite frankly, your wife deserves to be hanging from the bars for what she did. And let's go and rescue your children from that evil circus. Well, it's certainly become an evil circus now, hasn't it? All because of that one little moment from sitting around the campfire. How remarkable. And all done after the character was created. So you can add and layer to it. I have friends who... No, actually, in my case, most of my friends know most of my stories because I do like talking. But if I was not the type who shared everything about my life, then I would have friends who would not know things about me that they currently do know about me because I do share too much. You get the idea. We all have stories that not all of our friends know all the details about. Especially mine, you have to repeat multiple times usually to get that to sort of sink in. But anyway. So that is my approach to retroactively creating backstories. Create just a moment and don't feel like you have to suddenly create this novel of your character's backstory. One moment, elaborate it a little bit with an emotional hook. Next session, another moment. Fourth session, link 3 moments together. Give 3 little descriptors and suddenly you've got this rather interesting 3-paragraph backstory, which is 3 paragraphs more than you had when you first started, which is a much better place to be as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, I just want to say thank you to all of our Patreons who tirelessly and valiantly support this channel, and to you for watching. Even just watching the ads supports the channel and allows us to continue to make these things, even though our health might not necessarily be the best constitution score we could possibly have achieved this year. We will continue into the far future. So just bear that in mind. You're part of our horde of great role players, and we like it that way. Until next time, I wish you and yours the very happiest of playing. The one advantage of being particularly ill is that one has this deep, sonorous voice to say things like, hit the like button. Oh, yes, hit that subscribe button. And if you really want more videos, hit the bell. The bell. That is what you must hit. And there we go. That is the last of the voice. So for now, from Jeremy Irons, no. No, seriously. Just stop. Stopping.